Well, welcome, folks. This is the April 11th River Management Roundtable. And if you've joined us before, you know that this is, we've held these each month on either kind of river-specific topics, like the foundations and operations of managing rivers, or we've also held them about kind of workplace culture topics. So this is the, I would say more of the former. This year, we also have moved to a model of doing them once per month on the second Tuesday. And we are here to have a discussion as opposed to like talking at you, for an hour. So welcome. And today's topic is river-related nonprofit stewardship, how do groups stay relevant and healthy when we're competing for the same resources. Our special guest, I'm going to let her introduce herself in a minute. My name is Risa Shimoda. I'm the Executive Director of the River Management Society, and welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angie Furman. I'm the River Training Center Coordinator. And just before we get into discussion today, a few reminders about just making sure that we're all heard and respectful of one another. And we've got a nice small group here. So we're talking about doing some introductions here in a minute, maybe after Christina introduces herself. And then, yeah, excited for today's conversation. So thanks for joining us. Go ahead, Christina.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Christina Rylands, and I am the Vice Chair and Project Director of the Upper Merced River Watershed Council. We're a teeny tiny nonprofit located just outside of Yosemite National Park here in Central California. And I am currently the only paid quote unquote staff member. And after spending a long period of time working in for the National Park Service doing river management planning on wild and scenic rivers, I kind of jumped ship and joined the nonprofit sector, and have been in the nonprofit sector for about 13 years now. And so I'm really excited to be here with you all today and talking about this topic of river serving nonprofits, and looking forward to a really, really fun and engaging conversation today. So I think because we have a nice tidy group, Angie, I think we're gonna go around the horn and see if folks want to introduce themselves. Is that what's happening next?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'll just kind of go down my list here. So we'll start, how about with Amy, and then we'll go to Coulter.
Good afternoon. I'm Amy Peterson. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of River Falls, Wisconsin. And we are working with a nonprofit, the Kinney Corridor Collaborative. And so I have some from that group here with me today.
And I'm Steve Goff. I'm the Vice President of KCC.
Yep, and I'm Judy Foster Babcock. I'm the current president of Kinney Corridor Collaborative. We're a relatively new nonprofit, about 3 years old, but we grew out of the community's response to the city's request to build a partner for a project or projects on the river for a plan they adopted in 2019. So we're a new partner, but we've got old roots. That works.
Absolutely.
That works. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for joining. How about Coulter, and then we'll do Heather.
Hi there. My name is Coulter Pence. I work for the U.S. Forest Service on the Flathead National Forest. I work with the Three Forks of the Flathead Wild and Scenic River. I'm joining because we have a dynamic nonprofit partner that's standing up. They're younger, newer, about 2 years old, and that's the Flathead Rivers Alliance. I, as an agency, am trying to gather information on how I can be a good partner to them. and have a better understanding of the challenges, opportunities that they can represent. Unfortunately, they're not able to join today, but I think they do plan to tune in if there's a recording shared later.
Thanks, Coulter. Go ahead, Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Barr with the Friends of the Lower Appomattox River. We are just south of Richmond, Virginia. Another small nonprofit like all of us on the call. We are a staff of 2.5. Our organization is about 20 years old, but staffed only about the last 7 or so years. I was actually a board member who transitioned to the second staff member. We're really a river corridor focused organization, really right now looking at land more than water. So we're doing a land trail, 25-mile trail through 6 different communities. Though we do have flat water and white water on our portion of the river, we're at the falls of the river, and we do have paddling, and we know we can do a better job of linking those 6 communities and paddling. But I think, you know, we're a totally different animal on the East Coast than you guys are on the West Coast with rivers. So
Thanks, Heather. How about we'll do John and then Leaf.
Hi, I'm not a member of any organization. I'm here up in our nation's capital of Canada on the Ottawa River, and I'm just auditing this to see that there's a possibility of creating a similar organization to what you guys are doing. We have the Ottawa River Keeper here, but a lot of navigators, people in canoes and kayaks and the motorboaters, you know, whenever we try and engage them into navigational issues, they beg off, saying that they're focused entirely on the environment and things like water purity. But it's kind of funny because a lot of paddlers, and motorboaters are involved in that organization, thinking that that's the organization to go to represent our interests as well. But actually, it isn't. So there's a bit of a vacuum here. And we really need something to fill that vacuum. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Hi, all. My name is Leif Kinberg. I'm the Executive Director of the Illinois River Watershed Partnership, which is the headwaters in Northwest Arkansas and flows into Northeast Oklahoma. I'm joining the call just to listen in and learn, but we're increasingly an urbanizing watershed, and one that has significant growth in recreation. We've stood up a recreation management program, stewardship program, that's really primarily focused on the Arkansas portion of the watershed, because the regulatory framework and support on the Oklahoma side is quite mature in a different way. And so anyway, happy to be here and look forward to learning. Thanks.
Thanks, Leaf. All right. How about Dave? And then we'll go to the 2 people on the phone.
Hi there. I showed up late. What is this? Just introduce yourself?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, I'm David Cernicek. I work for the Bridger-Teton National Forest on the Snake River Headwaters Wild and Scenic designation out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And we do a lot of partnerships to stay in business. And without partners, we could accomplish nothing. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Dave. All right. We've got 2 people on the phone. We'll first do the person who's got the 703 area code.
I think that might be Jack. Is that Jack
Oh,
Henderson?
Jack.
Maybe not.
Or how about iPhone? The other person on the phone, anyone on the phone.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes.
This is Layla. Yeah, so I'm a river enthusiast. I was one time affiliated with the Kalamazoo Watershed Council in Michigan. And I've moved somewhere else, and I just want to learn more about this. So yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Cool. Oh, nice. And I think Jack just left, but he's coming back in. All right, Jack, how about you go?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool, sorry about that. Poor signal here in the field. So this is Jack Henderson with the French Broad Paddle Trail. I work for a nonprofit here in Western North Carolina called Mountain True. And we actually have a staff of about 24 people with just a couple people focused on the river that I work on, the French Broad. And my program of focus is the Paddle Trail, which is recreational programming along 114 miles of French Broad River across 4 counties here in the western part of the state. So we work on access point development and maintenance, riverside campsite development and maintenance, signage, information mapping, things like that. And so we've worked on this program for quite a while, but we've recently received some funding from the state to really dig in and do more work. So, you know, we competing for grants is a big part of our background. I'm curious to learn more about that through this context, but also just looking forward to learning from other people that work for nonprofits on the river. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack. I think that's everyone. So cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining and for introducing yourself. I think I'm going to just go ahead and pass it back over to you, Christina.
Okay, great. Well, hi, everybody. Thanks so much for all of your introductions and telling us a little bit about where you're coming from, both geographically and in terms of your nonprofit world. I think there are a lot of common themes just listening to everyone's stories, and I think we're going to have a really interesting discussion. But setting the stage, why are we doing this? So our organization, the Upper Merced River Watershed Council, has been around for over 20 years. And we used to have staff, we used to have grants, things were really great until 2012, and the grants dried up, and then literally our offices burned to the ground and our organization pretty much ground to a halt. There's been a group of really diehard board members and volunteers that have kind of kept the organization limping along. And we got a Bureau of Reclamation grant to help do a little bit of capacity building work to see if we could really fan the flame of our organization and reignite our efforts. And so I was assigned to be the project manager for this work. And the more I've talked to folks that are kind of like-minded watershed councils or friends groups for various rivers, the more I realized we had some really interesting stories to tell and common experiences with seeking funding. How do you staff people? Board development, how do we really decide what it is that we want to do? How do we not compete with each other? And as we were getting ready for the symposium, we thought it might be kind of fun to pull together a group of like-minded river serving nonprofit professionals, since RMS is really an organization that serves people that are doing this work of river management. I mean, I first got introduced to RMS as a federal employee and found it just really amazing to be able to have this group of people to click into, where I could come with my questions and there was always someone who had an amazing experience to be able to help me out. Now that I'm in the nonprofit sector, I felt a similar sense of who are my people out there that may have similar stories, and we may have things to learn from each other. I had this conversation with Jan Dorman from Friends of the River, which is an organization here in California, and she's the executive director there now, new executive director. And you know, she was asking really similar questions. And so we thought, what if we were to take some of these questions to RMS and see if we could pull together some of the nonprofit members to have a conversation about what are some of our unique challenges and opportunities as river serving nonprofits? How can we best learn from each other? And at the symposium in San Antonio just a couple months ago, or a month and a half ago, I helped lead a session where we just got some folks together to ask this question and to really get their ideas. And we had an amazing, really amazing discussion. A lot of really great ideas came out. Lots of questions came out, probably more so than answers. But what we really wanted to do was lay the groundwork for, is this a worthy conversation for us to be having within RMS? And I feel like in San Antonio, the resounding response was yes. And so with this roundtable discussion, we're really hoping to take it, if not to the next level, to bring those same kinds of questions to this group and to hear from all of you about, I don't have a presentation, I don't have anything, fancy prepared. This is really, since this is a roundtable, an opportunity for all of us to come together and share ideas, share our questions that we have, or areas where we might need some help as nonprofit river serving organizations. So I'll stop there. Risa.
Well, if Ange, you want to go to the next slide? So here's some of the questions that you might have seen as you were just signing up for it. And they're kind of things that we hear about. They might be questions that you might have asked before. How do you help? And this is, so there's maybe a bias here. How do you help agency partners do their jobs more effectively for folks whose rivers go through federal lands or state lands, or I guess it could be county lands, and even private lands? You could change that, strike that word agency out. How do you help those whose land is adjacent to your river? What are obstacles that stand between nonprofits and agency partners? That's, yeah, and what do you or don't you do relative to formalizing relationships with those partners? And again, it could be a township, a borough, or like on the, we've done a project on the lower Delaware Wild and Scenic River. It's a partnership river. There are well over 20 townships, towns, boroughs, and unincorporated areas that they must work with in order to manage their river. That's pretty complicated. So it could be dealing with one agency like the BLM, or it could be, partnership situation. And then finally, do you have a plan that identifies funds to support your work before you embark on an initiative? If there's anything that probably is endemic with the very beginnings of river nonprofits, is that there's a person or a few people who start doing, helping, advocating, or stopping because they think it's important. And then they think about whether or not they have the money to do that afterwards. And this is, early on, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So to the extent that that could continue into some bit of the life of an organization, it's a good question to ask. Maybe it's, of course we do. Of course we have a 5-year plan. Of course we have a financial plan, but I'm not sure that that's the case with everyone. So here's some of the questions that, if we could start by just sharing those from your perspectives, which are some of the most important that have framed what you do, or they might be questions that are ringing in your ears because you think about them all the time and you're not sure how to address them. I'll kind of leave it there and see what folks think. When we asked the questions in the sign up process, we didn't get many people filling them out. So we were wondering what you think. And maybe Christina from the San Antonio session, if there are comments that you remember from, there's similar discussion, maybe you could suggest those, what you heard from that group. So it's not just us talking about our own rivers.
Sorry, you did. If there are questions that folks have that, on this topic, feel free to shout them out.
It's more of a comment. This is Leif Kinberg from the Illinois River Watershed Partnership. And just if I'm hearing correctly, just sharing is the goal here, but In terms of helping agency partners, one of the challenges we've really had is effective management of our public access and existing kind of assets around recreation. And I think one of the most critical elements that we've really been effective at, and I think is really valuable with agency, with all partners, private and public, is just bringing them together in a way that leads to dialogue and consensus building. I suppose that's not real groundbreaking, but I think that it really makes a difference, because I think a lot of the work unfortunately happens in silos, and us as nonprofits and you know, partner building organizations in some sense can really help with that. So that's what we've focused on, and it's been pretty effective. And you know, their personalities can interfere with that in some cases, but we've had good success by really just focusing on goals and building consensus.
Lee, I have a question for Lee, kind of in response to that. Have you approached a situation with that? Have you addressed a situation with that approach and ever been surprised about what you find comes out of it? As opposed to, let's see if they have the answer. Let's see if we can find the answer to this question by asking people. Sometimes you open the door and something unusual kind of walks in that's helpful.
Well, I mean, I don't know how. I'm at the learning table here, so bear with me. Some of you may have a lot more experience than this than I do, but I think what has been surprising is that in the absence of clear vision and goals, there's been a lot of ad hoc approaches and solutions that have been kind of very experimental, which can be a good thing, but also inconsistent and leading to, let's call them less than desirable results in the recreation space. And so whether it be trash management or access management or overloved sites, you know, and a river that's really appreciated but under respected, let's say. And so I think just convening and bringing folks to the partners has opened up all kinds of financial partnerships. I mean, we're kind of unique here in Northwest Arkansas. It's a unique growing economy that has some really strong philanthropic partners and good agencies as well that are really engaged, but they're busy and they're stretched, and us being present and really kind of present over time. We're 18 years old as an organization now, has allowed us to build some goodwill and trust that is really critical to with all types of stakeholders. Our board of directors, sorry to go off in the weeds on your question, Risa, but our board of directors is 6 stakeholder groups, and they come from a broad spectrum. Only one of those is conservation focused. And so we've got a lot of industry and business and agriculture and others on our board. And that convening power, that kind of consensus-based opportunity that we can create the environment for has led to, yes, some very surprising results in terms of partners coming forward with both funding and even just reallocation of existing resources that they're already putting in other parts of the state or other parts of the watershed, saying, we want to work with you and let's figure this out. So
That's great. Has your board always had that diversity? You know, that's really great. I don't think that's super across the board.
yeah, and it has. It was founded that way. It always has had that diversity. You know, it's gained and lost board members that increased or improved that diversity in different ways or inversely. But yeah, it's pretty diverse. And I would encourage that you could probably do it through committees and things like that as well, with, you know, outside the organization, but it's really strengthened our credibility in the case that we can make and developing those consensus-based solutions that I mentioned.
Mhm.
Not to say it's been perfect.
Yeah. So if all nonprofits had more money than they could stand and we're trying to figure out how to spend it, we probably wouldn't be here. So if there are some specific challenges that you might be facing, or Christina talked about her group having started with rich and grant funding and then it dwindled and isn't replaced grant for grant. So looking maybe for new ways, new opportunities, or an incentive to not rethink the mission, but how you do your work. I don't know if there's anyone who's gone through that kind of a process.
Yeah, I think, Risa, if I can just tag on to that too, I think, our organization was started 23 years ago because of receiving a state watershed grant. And it really directed the priorities of the organization. And I think I've been a volunteer in the organization all these 23 years, not always a board member, but so from the outside looking in, you could see how as the grant funding came in, that's what steered the priorities. And I guess, I'm wondering about that right now with our organization, since we're quite literally burned to the ground and we're looking at how to really establish what we want to do as an organization and to focus on with our priorities without just letting the money dictate the mission or letting the money dictate what our priorities are. I mean, I guess that's a big question I have. How do other nonprofits kind of balance that? Are they, because I've talked to a lot of different folks who've said, oh yeah, a lot of the money comes in the form of projects. And so being able to really be clear about what your priorities are, and are those projects in alignment with those priorities, or do you just chase the money because that's where the money is? I'm curious if folks have had experience with that, or what are your thoughts about how we fund the work that we do?
This is Judy Babcock with the Kinney Corridor Collaborative in River Falls, Wisconsin. So the general practices for any nonprofit to be sustainable is that you have a diversified source of funding, right? You can't just rely on government grants or foundation grants. You also need a strong source of individual giving so that you can balance it out. And if you can creatively think of a way to generate, mission-related revenue that won't be a tax problem, that's more sustainable, such as, a franchise arrangement or a federated fundraising with a company that produces a product who's willing to, share their revenue and profits with you. Those kinds of relationships, I think, make a picture of your financials, which come from a lot of sources. And that way, depending on what you're trying to work on, you can draw on the source that's best able to respond. So I'll give, for example, Kinney Corridor Collaborative is a collaborative entity. We have strong relationships with other nonprofit organizations, business partners in the community, and so on. And so each conversation about support is, as much as we can make it, a general request, right? Don't put any strings on her money when it's coming from an entity that can do that. Obviously, an agency grantor or a foundation grantor is probably going to put strings on things for various reasons, which then you try to match up the project with the funding and their mission or their interest. So it's a big job for a staffed organization. We're all volunteer. So we have, 8 board members and 15 people on our fundraising team. So you can tell the work capacity need is a lot different, right? So that's how we do it. It's one model, right? It's not easy for everyone to attract people, but if you're passionate about your river and people say they want to make a difference, get them involved. That's, get them on the fundraising team, get them asking their friends to support. Every gift helps, right? And get that relationship built so that your communications can then go to them and show the value of their dollars invested and how it's helping build the vision, right, and deliver the incentives or programs or projects or access or whatever that they're interested in. Make sense? Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, it's challenging.
Coulter has her hand up.
Hi there. I don't know that we've solved this riddle on this unit here, but acknowledging that dynamic, we've tried to, with the funding we provide from the federal agency to our nonprofit partner, we've tried to attach as few strings as possible to the funds we provide so that they can use it for what we would call programmatic work rather than project work. So that they can then fund foundational type of stuff. And then with that source, then go find project money. And I think it helps. We still have to show some outputs with the work or with the funding that we give to them. So we have tried to make that those descriptions as generic as possible. And sometimes it's like, pursue these ideas, pursue this concept, you know, but we're not maybe saying this project has to be done precisely this way on this date or this timeline. I think sometimes though, it's tripped us up a little bit because that's enabled our partner to then pursue projects that we were ambivalent about when we would have maybe preferred them to focus on other things. So I guess what's behind that is giving them that flexibility so they can use the money as needed, but then we agree to a little bit of lack of control of that money. But that's the approach we've tried to take here to support them with that challenge.
I'll never follow up. That nonprofit you're working with is a newer nonprofit, right? Did they spin off some other mission-driven NGO, or how did they come together?
They came together. We have a planning. We're working on updating our plans for recreation management and other things on this river system. And there were people through that public comment process and public engagement process that made clear they didn't want to just make comments on the plan. They wanted to be hands-on with delivering on that plan. So even regardless of what management specifics came out of the plan, they wanted to be a part of making a positive impact with their work. And so those people kind of grouped up, and we encouraged them and offered a few token projects for them to dig their teeth into, to help them feel that they've made an impact, and then it's grown from there.
Walter, I'm not familiar with how the Flathead Rivers Alliance started to the point where you had a relationship with them, or they started a relationship with you to develop into the place where you have that level of trust with them and they feel obliged to you, because it doesn't just automatically happen, right?
It doesn't happen automatically. We approached them about providing funding because we wanted to encourage them, I guess. And so we did compare our mission statements and our goals. And I think in the end, we may have influenced their goals a little bit, but their mission is around providing education to visitors to the river and support greater knowledge and of how to take care of the river system. And we support that. So we've offered some baseline funding. I think this is the third year now. And though our agreement does have a few specifics, as I say, we've tried to make it aspirational as possible, so they can, whether they want to flex to use that money for their executive director or pivot that money into a project where a grant fell short. We've tried to say, as long as the projects and the programs are focused around education, that meets our goals, and stewardship projects that meet our goals, we're going to be okay with that. But as I said, sometimes maybe within those priorities, they might want this education thing when we would have preferred this education thing. But you know what, it is education after all, and that was our goal. So we trying to be trusting on that. I would say it's not a barrier, but having more trust that they'll work on things that we want to prioritize would help us provide more funding. So we probably have more growth in that relationship. And anyways, and it's also been useful for the Flathead National Forest to fund this partner, because we want to demonstrate to our community, our local community, the state, you know, the visitors, those interested in the Flathead National Forest, that we welcome all people who are interested in stewarding this river. And it's not just us alone that does that. We welcome others who want to get organized. And so us providing funding and supporting this group that has taken the steps to do that, it's important for us to signal our support for people who want to get engaged in a positive way.
Great, thanks.
Wow, you're a dream come true. Can we bring some of that over here?
That's one thing I was going to talk about, Christina, is, you know, dealing with agencies can be really, really hard. And I think we do run off some stuff we drastically need just by being ourselves, our difficult selves, which is really unfortunate. But yeah, it's, you know, to me, it's like one of the, there was some type of study by the Forest Service where, you know, they came up with a list of like the top 10 things that didn't contribute to successful partnerships. And one of them was our partners having to take time off work to come work, you know, come meet with us during working hours. And that one, I don't remember the rest, but that one, you know, kind of sticks me straight in the heart. You know, I'll come meet you 3 states away at 3 a.m. if you're going to do something to make my life easier. If your agency person can't stay an extra hour or meet with you in the evening or the morning or go on a hike with you, then it's probably not worth pursuing a partnership, and because, you know, that person does not want to bend to you. But projects, you know, there's got to be a spirit of partnership, and there's got to be, you know, it's like, to me, partnerships are something that make my life better. And if they're going to make my life and my river better, I'm all in. And I look at them as critical pieces that make my river flow as well as it does, not something that's a hassle or anything else. Given that, it's got to come, you know, we have to communicate all the time. I have probably 90 partners that I actively call partners. But things have to be, you know, the right project at the right time, at the right place. And you got to be dealing with the right person. If you're trying to deal with somebody who's great, but they can't make it happen, or they keep having a manager that keeps slapping them back down or something, those are really hard things. And those are, you know, it's hard to get past, like the evil manager who just doesn't want you people coming around or making trouble. That I've seen ruin a lot of things. You know, another big one is, you know, it's like, that's great. You want to, you know, get me all these picnic tables with umbrellas, but really, I don't have any bathrooms. I don't have any vault toilets. And that's a problem, because I got, you know, 1,000 people in this area a day. I know you want to buy sexy high-end stuff for me, but I've got to have toilets. And I know it's not sexy, and I know you don't want to give me money, or, you know, have your newsletter of you breaking a bottle of champagne as we launch the new vault toilet. That's what I need right now. And, you know, beyond that, if we're going to fund the toilet, I need a guy to clean that toilet every day. And then at the end of the season, I need to be able to take the poop away, and money for that. And so that's, you know, that's kind of a hard time sometimes, or it's like, yeah, this $25,000 in a really cool thing I'd love to do, but I've got to get past my toilet problems. And so a lot of this stuff, it's like, yeah, work with your partners, figure out what they're needing. Tell them what they need, or clobber them with something that you think they need. But yeah, right time, right place, right project, right river, right person. Thanks.
Dave, it's clear that you have dealt with this poop problem or the unsexiness of vault toilets. How have you gotten around that, or how have you been effective having your partners embrace the vault toilet?
Oh, the vault toilet problem.
Whatever.
That's a good one. Yeah, I did come to the section of river and it only had like 2 toilets and 200,000 people a year using it. What I came up with to try and make get grants to build, toilets was, everybody wants to pay for a fish study. Everyone wants to pay for something that is water quality related, all that type of stuff. But yeah, it's crickets when you're talking about poop. What I did do is I stumbled across a student at Montana State that was having, in their engineering program, that was having great success with the secret formula that he came up with using fly ash, the byproduct of burning coal in electrical power plants, coal plants. It's the stuff that goes up the smokestack, and there's just acres and acres of that byproduct out back behind coal burning fire plants, just going to waste or blowing into rivers and getting into gills of fish, that type of stuff. This guy could mix other chemicals in with that and get the same strength that you could with Portland cement, and Portland cement is significantly much more expensive. And so, I wrote my toilets up as being a water quality fish habitat improvements thing, because we built them. I found a guy to, pour the secret formula up in Missoula, Montana. We had them all specially made, but my toilets are all made out of a environmentally sound fly ash byproducts they don't have any use for. And that was 20 years ago, but I got probably 8 of them in the canyon, and people jumped on it. They funded them after never funding me for any of my other attempts. But since they were, and of course the water quality problem of everybody going to the bathroom outside. But yeah, that was my my trick in getting funding for toilets.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
It worked.
Thanks for sharing that, Dave. I know that, on our river, we have pretty much a one-man river manager on the BLM portion of the Merced. And, he's like, can you help me out with cleaning the bathrooms? And for him, summer after summer, just being able to go in there and clean those bathrooms is just like, one of the key things that he's got to deal with every summer. And so it's really a big deal. Having those facilities, not having the staff to be able to just get rid of the poop, to be able to just clean around the bathrooms, to keep them clean, it's a really big deal. And, we hear that.
Yeah, there's another section of river here that's managed by our county, and they pay over, like $35,000 a year to have the toilets cleaned. I can hire a lot of rangers to clean toilets and clean the site and patrol the river and provide assistance and that type of stuff. If you'll help me obtain that money, and I will, if you give me starting money, I will get that money matched by another grant if I can, or if you can, and we'll take that next big pile of money and get that matched, and maybe we'll take your money out after that. But, toilets are extremely expensive to get cleaned on the open market, and everything accomplished by the guy who came to clean it can be ruined in one use. And emergency revisits for cleanings are extremely expensive. That is a huge help.
Yeah, can I jump in here? Something Dave just said there helps me. It's kind of interesting confluence here. Something Dave was just saying there about essentially partially was, engaging partners and volunteers in very practical, earthy matters, we'll say, to help out on things that need help. And at the same time, I'm kind of, multitasking here, and I'm sending our partner an email about reminding them that we want to train their volunteers on using authority of the resource technique. And I just kind of put this together. I think sometimes, whether it's working with an individual volunteer or with a whole nonprofit group, if we can, I think we have found some success here. I'm realizing in the moment when I've used authority of the resource as a way of saying, I care about this thing, water quality. We'll use the human waste analogy. We care about water quality. I know you care about water quality too, partner or volunteer that feels like you're underutilized or not best deployed. Well, right in front of us here is a water quality issue, and that's having a plan to maintain these outhouses or acquire more outhouses or get them funded, et cetera. Will you join me in working towards that goal we have together? That's part of the authority of the resource technique, is saying, hey, this is what concerns me. This is maybe what you and I have in common. Can we do this together? And the reason why I felt like that was worth sharing is, one, I just kind of thought of that we've been doing that here to try to get ourselves on the same page with our partner when they maybe have very aspirational goals that are very, very high-minded. I'm like, yeah, we got to take care of some practical matters here first before we can get to that stuff. But also give a sense of purpose behind the work, whatever work we decide to do, give that sense of purpose. Whether it's on an individual level or an organizational level. So I think I just wanted to share that out loud because it kind of just put it together that we've been using that, it's been successful, and I can be more intentional about that approach in the future. So thanks for helping me have that moment right now.
Reminding people of what issues are common to all of us. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah, what we have in common and how we can make a difference together now. Yeah, it's maybe stating the obvious, I guess, but I'm connecting it back to that authority of the resource concept.
Coulter, can you say a little bit more about that? It's a term of art I'm not familiar with, the authority of the resource technique.
Yeah, well, Dave, I imagine you're skilled in it as well, so pick up where the holes I leave, please. Authority of the resource is from the center, I'm forgetting it now, but the people who produce Leave No Trace, who manage to leave no trace messaging. And it's a framework of communications. And I think it's particularly, it's the strategy is you're using the authority of the resource. You are bringing forth in a conversation the authority of the river and what the river needs and demands, as opposed to the authority of the law. There are the laws that tell you to manage your human waste this way, versus the river should tell you, the river can also tell you how to manage your human waste, if that makes sense. And it's very useful for particularly non-uniformed people, whether that's an employee or a volunteer, because maybe you feel like using authority of the resource is a logic approach rather than a bossy commanding approach. And so volunteers are well suited to use it because they say, hey, I volunteer here, I'm a river steward here, I care about this. And I think you can find a way to care about this too, whatever the issue is. Here's what needs to happen in order to see improvement about this thing that we care about. So let's do that now, as opposed to somebody walking up and saying, you need to do this because the rules say this. And that's a way to turn everybody off really quickly, right? So that's the summary there. It's a simple framework that you can even use within your own household. I know that we both care about having a clean kitchen, roommate. And I'm concerned that the dishes aren't being done on a routine basis. So what can we do to make a plan here? It's that kind of consensus building conversation. But it's adapted for natural resources. I see Angie put in a link. Thank you, Angie. There's several short videos And it's well, I'm going to say it one more time, but it's well suited for nonprofit partners because maybe they can't show up with a weapon or knock heads and threaten to arrest somebody, but it actually can be more effective than even our own law enforcement officers when they use that. So it's definitely something for a nonprofit partner to have in their back pocket and use in the field or use when you're trying to build consensus on a bigger issue.
That's great. Thank you for that. And thanks, Angie, for posting the link. What a great approach.
Yeah, I have a question for Heather. Heather, you put in the chat, this cool thing, a small portion of your budget and so forth. You get paid on a per capita basis. What kind of funding do you get that's a per capita? I hadn't really heard of something like that.
Yeah, so most of our localities do during their budget season, they actually have like a process for any nonprofit to apply for funds. So it's just part of the budgeting process in our communities. And so we, instead of just asking for straight up funds, we developed a per capita model. And so we're asking each locality, we were 25 cents, I think we bumped it to 30 cents this year. And like I said, when we first started asking for this, we weren't getting money from every locality. It was just an ask, and now as relationships build and we have more capacity, localities are seeing more benefit. We are getting that from every single locality. I also think some of our board members, have gone back and said, look, I'm not going to be on this board. Little town X is giving money. We're not, so I think there's a little bit of that peer pressure now that all 6 are giving. But it's just, it's not much right now of our budget, maybe $10,000 of our budget. But like I said, I think we're going to keep on kind of bumping that up and growing that. And it really is giving us its general fund money too. There's no strings attached. It's not a grant. It really is just an appropriation to our nonprofit. And I don't know if other communities do that, but it's pretty common for all of our communities have this kind of open nonprofit funding model that they do. So yeah, it's good. And really a lot of my role is working. So I'm a planner and a forester by trade. So my role is kind of plugging into these we have really small communities, staffs, and I kind of sit on comprehensive plan updates, or I sit on bid committees, and I kind of plug into staff. So we're using that saying, look, if you're funding my position a little bit with this money, then Heather can come do more in your communities directly.
So here's a big question. How do they count their usage or their throughput or their whatever? How do they do that?
Yeah, so we're our communities are so small, we're saying 100% of the population. So we're using the whole population number for most of the localities. One locality is very, very large, and that locality already kind of splits north and south as far as the region. So we use a certain like regional demographic number that's just well known. So yeah, our communities are so small, we just use their whole number.
Mm-hmm. And people are familiar enough with how they use the river that the number works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, seems to be a good model. It seems to be, like I said, working and growing for us and getting better. As the years go on, we're seeming to get more steady funding from that source.
No, for me as agency, I'd rather you guys have the money for a project I need done than the government hold it, because I'm so very much encumbered by how I can spend that, when I can spend it. If we pay the invoice off on time or 3 years from now and make enemies. And, one of the things that's really nice about partners is, if I'm writing a grant, I will probably write it so it ends up in your bank account, not mine. Because we don't have to go through a long and enduring, miserable contracting process necessarily. It's just much more freer thing to do, and it facilitates saving thousands of hours of time, and it turns out better. There's some things I have to do internally, but that's a super partnership thing. We've accomplished a lot just bringing all partners to the table, and everybody who has an interest in a general concept, we just schedule them, and things come up that we never saw coming. All I can really provide, I don't have money for partners, but I can provide great real estate, and I can provide, government stuff. But when everybody has a little bit and they want to do something, we can put all those resources together and accomplish really amazing things. And sometimes you find partners that are very wealthy that when everybody else is broke, it's like, wow, didn't ever think about you before, but I'm glad you're here. Years ago when I did a lot of kids programming, I invited the arts to the table. And wow, the arts have a lot of money, and happy to let them out on the forest to collect stuff and make art out of. But they made so much happen for so many kids when the rest of us didn't have the money to do kid projects. But there's a lot of things that you can do as a partner that are so nice for us. One of my primary partners employs river rangers for me that I couldn't pick up through government hiring. I dress them up like Forest Service rangers. They're on the crew, that type of thing. They have workman's comp, but they work for the Grand Teton Association. And that is like one of the best things, because our hiring is always totally freaking miserable and impossible to get good people. I can hire people outside of that loop, and it makes my life wonderful. But you guys have so much potential to be great, do great things for your rivers if your agency is not difficult. And yeah, get people to the table, talk a lot. Even if you're not accomplishing something, you're establishing relationships and getting to know each other.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, we and it's a great example. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because we got some funding to do some park improvements at one of our county parks. But we didn't get any planning money, right? We only got the construction money. So we went to the county and said, look, we have this money. And so they just gave us a grant to go hire someone to do the planning part of it, right? So again, they couldn't go out to bid, it would take too long. And so yeah, it's a great relationship where we're going to work together to improve the park, but the money's going to flow through us. Improvements are going to happen, and then the county will take it back over. And we've done that a couple times now, and it's worked really well in our communities to kind of kickstart some of those on the ground projects.
Yeah, and look for grants that aren't necessarily money. The Park Service has an organization called River and Trails Conservation Assistance Program. It's mainly non-money things, but they will come to your community and help you lead meetings that build consensus and design an area, and really cool project stuff. It's like, here my conservation district will give you a grant for GIS work. A allotted number of hours to do a really cool GIS project you wish you could do if you had a staff. There is some of that stuff out there that can help you get a lot done as well.
I'm just going to toss in, I put in that thing about the SCorps. I attended a SCorp writing workshop 2 weeks ago, and maybe half of the states were represented. And I asked them how many SCorp state comprehensive outdoor recreation plans had river projects in them. And 1 out of 23 people raised their hand. It was horrible. But it was a function of the projects that are requested of them, the grants that are requested of the state park or state DNR, whoever's doing it in the state. So their funding for river projects was a reflection of what they're asked. So I just encourage you to find out if there's a plan in the process, or because they're now getting money with land and water conservation funding being annual and permanent. These SCorp writer people are now like, they used to be kind of rubber stamp, just copy and paste and update the date. And now they're sitting on tons of money and can do wonderful things. So encourage you to check that out. Like, there's one gal from Alaska who said she annually managed $40,000 and last year was $400,000. So it's a ton, almost to the point where they're looking for like, what can we spend our money on, which is kind of unheard of for us. I don't want to make us get late, but sorry. Maybe we should continue. If there are other questions, we can kind of roll forward. Christina, you think? We kind of have been talking about this, and
Yeah, I think just in terms of what's next, reach out to us. Let us know if you think, this kind of discussion of or a forum for bringing together river serving nonprofits would be really helpful to you. I know it's super helpful to me, and I'm interested in learning more from folks and just hearing success stories, challenges, hearing from our agency folks. Thank you, Dave, for your sharing really good examples, you know, about how we can best work together. So yeah, just keep us posted if this was a good use of time and we'd like to continue this conversation. It would be good to know, because we're really interested in the possibility of creating a dedicated forum just to talk about nonprofit stuff. So thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Angie and Risa, for
Making
putting
it
this all
happen.
together.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just a reminder, I was recording this, we'll post it on our YouTube channel. Also, just a ton of great content on the YouTube channel. So I encourage you to check that out. And if you subscribe, you'll get updates and see new videos as we post them. And then some upcoming events. Our next roundtable is going to be May 9th. And then we also have a Wild and Scenic River training session on Section 7 of the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act coming up on April
19.
It's covered up. I was like 17th or 19th, on the 19th. So just wanted to mention those. And then also just a quick survey that I'm going to drop into the chat here. Would love to hear your thoughts about this session. And if you have any thoughts about future sessions, feel free to put those in the survey as well. So thank you all.
Thanks for
Thank you.
being here. Thanks for your work. Nice
Thanks,
to meet
everybody.
you guys at the Kinney Corridor. All of you guys.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Heather.
Good.
Thanks. Right away.